Action.
Yeah, buddy. You have such deep brown eyes, Michael. Like a puppy dog.
They're my mother's.
You should give them back.
No, that would mean that she'd be able to see everything I do.
Graham, I want you to know, if we get snowed in
Yes.
and have to huddle for warmth,
Uh-oh.
I'm here for you, buddy. Theme music, theme rendition by Brian Platter. That's enough of that. Welcome to Big Words I Know by Heart, a program of rants, raves, faves, pet peeves, personal vendettas, celebrity interviews, and anything else we can fill the half hour with. My guest today attended the Joe Kubert. Did I pronounce that correct? I never know with that.
Yes,
School of Art. Since then, he's had a 6-year run on Detective Comics, a 6-year run on his childhood favorite strip, The Phantom, and a 12-year streak writing Rex Morgan, M.D. for King Features Syndicate.
Drawing, not writing.
Damn. He's the creator of the webcomic Sunshine State and the co-creator of Batman's Bane villain with writer Chuck Dixon and a little help from Denny O'Neil.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Most recently, he and Dixon had a hot hit on their hands with their very own Joe Frankenstein, available now in hardcover. 4-issue miniseries through IDW Publishing. I'm honored to present comic giant Graham Nolan.
Wow.
Round of applause. Joining me in the co-host hot seat is the host of the popular comics podcast It Came From The Longbox, as well as the...
It's popular?
It is popular. It is to me, buddy. As well as the former Buffalo ambassador to indie comic legend Spain Rodriguez, Mr. Michael Hoffert Jr. Welcome, gentlemen.
Oh, I'm with an ambassador.
Isn't that right?
I forgot about that, yeah. I stood behind him at a con once as kind of, muscle.
That was
That's
the
all.
Buffalo comic.
That was a couple of years ago, obviously, before he passed.
Graham, I really appreciate you coming on. It took a lot of coaxing, shall we say?
It was a timing thing.
The timing thing.
Yeah.
Ply him with beer.
So I...
Beer? And Tullamore
Mike
Dew.
knows my... Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Hopefully this is not the next Ice Age this evening as we record, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to wait till it was the snowiest night to come out.
Just a little bit of fluff flying around. You're a Buffalonian now, right?
That's right.
Are you ready for your questions, sir?
Fire away.
Does Nolan's Pub in Long Beach have a picture or any of your artwork on their walls?
They had a picture of me and my dad, who was the original founder of it, and my brother. But I think Hurricane Sandy wiped everything out inside, so I don't know if it's still there.
You haven't been back since?
No, I haven't been back.
Now, you spent your time growing up between Long Beach and where in Florida?
Indian Harbor Beach.
And you're a Buffalonian now.
Yeah, I've been here actually longer than anywhere else. I've been here about 27 years.
Why in God's name did you stay?
My wife is from this area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
True love.
Yeah.
That's a good reason.
Hey, just back to Nolan's Pub thing.
Yes.
The other classic watering hole in Long Beach is called Shines. Nolan's is on the east end. Shines is on the west end. Mm-hmm. And actually, there is a Joe Frankenstein page, of actual comic, hanging up in Shines in the west end.
That's awesome.
They got mentioned actually in Joe Frankenstein.
Available now in hardcover, ladies and gentlemen.
It's it.
You read it, Mike. What are your thoughts?
I loved it. I
In
thought
a nutshell.
It was great. I thought it was great. I mean, it starts in Buffalo, which I'm always happy to see comics set in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. It was just like a fun romp.
Will it continue?
That's the hope. We're hoping to. Right now, we're kind of looking for another publisher.
Fair enough.
So hopefully we'll get somebody.
You wrapped it up quite nicely, but you left it open at the end. There was that little... I think there's plenty more that can be said there.
Oh yeah, we've got a million different directions we want to go in with it.
And here's a question about Joe Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. Was Joe Frankenstein a love letter to classic movie monsters? And can you tell us a bit about the process from conception and series pitch to completion?
Answer A, yes. I mean, I was a monster fan long before I was a comic book fan. I mean, I watched monster. I was 8 years old when I saw my first monster movie. It was Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, And I used to read monster magazines as a kid. And in the magazines, there were all these ads for comic books. So I kind of like got into comic books through the monster magazines. So, yeah, Joe was definitely, it was a genre I wanted to do. And I wanted to, I love cross genres. One of my favorite Universal monster movies is The Mummy's Hand. It's the first Mummy movie after Boris Karloff's original. It was made in 1940, and it's like a two-fisted adventure romp that has a monster in it. And I love that concept of this hero archaeologist type guy, really a precursor to Indiana Jones, sort of. And he and his kind of funny sidekick guy, and they falls in love with this girl and stuff, and they're trying to they find the tomb, and Tom Tyler is the mummy in that, and he's lunging around killing people and stuff. But I love that concept, and so that was what I was trying to bring to Joe Frankenstein.
Mashing up genres. There was a little comedy in there. There was a little.
Yep.
And
actually, it started off, it was originally going to be a more pulpish type story. I wanted to call it Doc Frankenstein. And another thing that I loved was Doc Savage novels when I was a kid growing up, based on the old Pulp magazine character. And I had this idea of this adventurer named Doc Frankenstein, who was the descendant of Frankenstein, and the monster was his partner, and they were, fighting evil and all this other stuff. The problem is the Wachowski brothers already had copyrighted the name Doc Frankenstein, so I couldn't use it. And it was the whole idea of that series was predicated on that title. It really wouldn't work if I couldn't use that title. So I called Chuck up, and I was lamenting to him about my problem and everything, and he says, "Well, change the name." I said, "I can't change the name. It won't work for the reasons I just said to you." And I said, I can't just call him Joe Frankenstein. And he paused for a minute, and he goes, "That's a great name." So I said, we were looking for something to do together, and I said, "Well, do you want to come on board and hash this thing out with me?" And he said, "Yeah." And so we still stayed in that direction. And then my daughter Sarah, said to me offhandedly, you should make it more like Harry Potter. And that's when I got the idea, okay, instead of making him an adult, let's make him a kid, and make the monster, somebody watching over him, and he's got this whole backstory that he doesn't even know about, so that he and the readers can find out about it at the same time.
As a newly divorced man, I enjoyed all the divorce jokes between Frankenstein's monster and the bride.
Those were all the divorce jokes come from Chuck.
Michael,
because
you are no stranger to the comic realm.
Not at all.
Which side of Superman's penis are you on for Dark Knight 3?
I don't even understand that question.
The left or the right? I don't know. Probably the left.
Dark Knight 3? No?
You know what? It's one of those things where, like, talking about that image specifically.
Is this the Frank Miller image?
Yeah, the Frank.
Okay,
that was.
Okay. You know what? Kurt Busiek had a really good kind of rebuttal to the reaction to it, though, where he was like, "I think that's exactly the drawing that he wanted to do," and I agree. Because he can still draw. I think he just wanted to draw a Superman that looked ridiculous because, well, superheroes are kind of ridiculous. And he just wanted to kind of push it. So he can kind of get away with whatever he wants, I would assume.
I'm really enjoying it right now, and I hate to say that. DK3.
It's interesting. I mean, it part of it feels correct. It feels like a much closer sequel than Strikes Again. But at the same time, it feels slightly left of center.
Graham, you get all these single issues for free through DC? They just send you a slush punt? No?
No, I don't get anything.
That's nonsense.
I don't think they do it anymore.
You don't get comps?
I used to years ago when I worked for DC. But I don't think I'm not even sure they do the comps anymore, even for those that are working there.
Yeah, I heard they don't, which kind of bummed me out as somebody who would like to be a comic book professional someday. That was kind of one of the things I was hoping for, is that I could actually save money. And they would just send me the comics, but not so much anymore, I guess.
And you're a gun for hire now, Graham? You're working all ends of the spectrum?
Always have been, there was a period there where I had a contract with DC, but you're still a freelancer, you're not an employee of the company.
I read your Power of the Atom growing up. I really enjoyed it growing up, and I actually met you...
Growing up, man.
Growing up.
What does that say?
A few
I
years
made a
ago.
comment like that once, and I think you almost hit me.
And met you at Queen City, too, for the Hawk World launch, the Hawk World signing.
Oh!
So, you remember me? I was that one kid that was excited to be in a comic shop. Where do we go from there? Did you base Bane's character designs on your own physique, or was he a template for your workout routine? You're jacked.
Yeah, I think Graham and Greg Capullo are the only two comic book artists that look like they could kick anybody's ass.
And that's why I'm being respectful. You could beat me down.
But I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Did the character come first, or did you have a very disciplined workout regimen beforehand?
I did when I played sports in high school and stuff. But, you know, once you get married and you start having kids, you don't have any time for that anymore. And so during that period when I was working on Batman in my early 30s, up until I was like 46, that's when I said I got to do something here. You know, my back is hurting me. I'm getting arthritis in my knees. I feel like crap. So I had the discipline from my youth, and I just applied it in my 40s and got back into shape.
Can you do the triangle push-ups?
Oh, yeah.
Can you do the fingertip push-ups?
Fingertips? Yeah, I could do fingertips, yeah.
You'll be seeing
those aren't as hard as they look.
You'll be seeing that in the bonus clip, folks. No, you really won't. With all the conventions, panels, and expos you've endured, what's your trick to surviving endless lines of asthmatic and morbidly obese fanboys? And where do you stand on the charging for autographs controversy?
Hey, now. Don't typecast.
Present company exclusive.
Don't typecast fans.
I'm not. It's a question.
Just propagating a stereotype there.
Well, the fan base has changed from the years that I've been in the business. I mean, it's glaring, the difference when you go to a convention, you know, who comes up to your table now versus, 30 years ago. Back then, it was a lot more like the old, Star Trek kind of, socially awkward, fan geek.
The people who made Harlan Ellison angrier than he was to begin with.
Yeah, I guess. But now it's such a accepted media culture that you get all kinds. You never saw girls.
And now there's 48 Harley Quinns at every convention.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and they're vying for who can wear less. I mean it's it's crazy. So yeah.
So you're saying I can find wife number 2 there?
Absolutely, if you're looking for somebody who likes comics.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, I don't know.
Allegedly?
I've never found a single girl at a con, but maybe I'm just doing them wrong.
You're on
the cons, I mean.
Freudian slip there, Mike.
Moving on then.
Yeah.
What were the early days at Eclipse like when you began working with Chuck? I know you two have a very close relationship.
That was really the 1980s was like the second golden age of comics. So many publishers came. Well, first off, it started with the distribution process changed, and so many new publishers came up, and everybody was publishing different stuff. It wasn't just the Marvel and DC superheroes. You had Eclipse, First Comics, Comico, and all doing all kinds of creator-owned and skewed genre type stuff. Tim Truman was doing Scout.
My buddy Brian Bosworth, I think it's Bosworth or Boswell, was doing Reed Fleming.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. The Milkman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Black and white stuff. The Turtles came out of that, the Ninja Turtles.
Never heard of them.
And, it was really, really a great time. There's a lot of freedom. When you propose some crazy idea, there was usually a publisher that said, let's do it, I thought it was great.
It seems like in the last 20 or 30 years, anytime somebody tries to go outside of the big two and forge a path on their own with their own publishing house, they get swallowed up eventually.
Well, a lot of it is distribution. We've got a monopolistic business model here. You start with the publishing. You've got Marvel and DC,
and then you got Diamond,
and you have Diamond. And
There's
they're
Diamond
giving
and
all
Diner.
the breaks to those two guys.
Mm-hmm.
One time, it was in the 90s. Marvel had cut us an exclusive deal with Heroes World, and so nobody else could get their comics unless you went through Heroes World. DC saw that happen, and they snapped up Capital City. And then Marvel ended up buying out Heroes World, and Capital City went under. And then you had who's the distributor now?
Of Diamond or
Diamond. Yeah. And so all the discounts and stuff are given to those two guys, and so that makes it tough on other publishers, to get into the catalogs,
to get a foothold.
And then once it finally reaches the consumer, like, it's never a guarantee. Like, I still have issues with getting books the week they come out because Diamond will just decide to short the store, and that hurts. That hurts the store.
It hurts everyone. I
mean, it hurts the store, and then you go to another store that had it, and it's just all messed up.
Well, and retailers too. The retailer, they only have a certain budget. And they're less apt to take a chance when a comic is now, what is it, $5.99, $4.99,
$3.99. $3.99 is your average comic.
Okay, $3.99. And he's got to buy all his X-Men, all his Batmans, all his Walking Dead, all those things that are the sure sales. So whatever's left over, maybe he'll buy an issue of Joe Frankenstein or two, But, and then that's it. Then, he may sell those two, but he doesn't think, well, shit, if I had 10, I'd have sold all 10. He sold those two, and then he's moving on to next month's catalog, and he's buying the next round of X-Men and Spider-Man and all of that stuff.
The flagship titles.
Yeah, the easy money. And I don't blame them. They're there they got to make some money, and and they're working close to the bone. But it's a very, very monopolized business.
Michael, surely you have no opinion on this issue.
I mean, I think right now there's kind of an upswing in the, at least creatively. I can't speak to the business side, but I feel like there's kind of an upswing in the creative side. Like, I think Image right now is putting out a lot. Like, most of my stack, if I look at my stack every week, I have like my Marvels, my DCs, and my independents, which is everything from Image, Dark Horse, IDW, Valiant, and some guys that still do hand publishing, like or still do self-publishing, like Terry Moore. And I think right now is a great time for that, creatively speaking. And I think a lot of creators are kind of really kind of coming into their own into that, because it's much more lucrative for them, because if the right person sees that book, they can get a movie deal or a TV deal.
You get a creator-owned property in your
and everybody wants to be the next Robert Kirkman. And I have to say, like, Robert Kirkman's kind of
Who's that?
Kirkman's kind of a great example of, like, one of those guys who hasn't forgotten his love of comics. Like, you have a couple of guys who, like, they are amazing comic book writers, and then they all but disappear. Like, Brian K. Vaughan did that for a little bit, and he's just now starting to come back, but there was, like, 5 years where he did, like, 3 issues of a book and then just disappeared.
Look at Azzarello, who said he would never write superhero comics again. How'd that work out?
Well, it's probably because... well, he probably... I mean, I know Jim Lee likes his work, so he probably has a pretty decent deal. They put him on some big-ticket books. He probably makes a pretty penny from that.
Here's a question tailored directly to you, Michael.
Okay.
Agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Kevin Smith's comic writing was an embarrassment to the readers, diehard fans of Kevin Smith, DC Comics, the publishing supply chain, Diamond Distribution, anyone else who accidentally glanced at, processed, or even subliminally registered a single issue of anything he was involved in comic book form.
Kevin Smith when?
All Kevin Smith.
Disagree.
Anytime okay.
Disagree. If you look at his Daredevil, his Daredevil? His Green Arrow and his Daredevil. I mean, I would say that his Daredevil was one of the key moments of Marvel kind of creatively bringing themselves out of bankruptcy. I mean, because with that, his Daredevil run comes Marvel Knights. With Marvel Knights comes a lot of the creative choices that they made in the early 2000s, which brought me into comics. The same with his Green Arrow. I mean, his Green Arrow is what made me a fan of DC Comics, and because it was very much written as a almost like a tour of DC Comics at the time, it kind of set the baseline for the type of DC comics that I like, and it introduced me to concepts like the Justice Society of America,
which was
by Jeff Johns.
Yeah, that was phenomenal.
And then kind of, like what I think of when I think of the specific flavor of DC Comics, which is sadly lacking now. So I do think that Kevin Smith.
Why you gotta hate on DC Comics?
Because right now they aren't giving me DC Comics. I when I go to DC Comics, I want the flavor of DC Comics. Right now, it doesn't taste like DC Comics. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you're expecting a certain flavor, and and it's like the management changed. And they kept the menu the same, but everything tastes different and wrong.
Makes sense.
My point is that I think at least Kevin Smith's earlier work is actually it's really good, and he actually stands out. As somebody who is really good at comics. I think his work in the last couple of years, not so much. I think his Batman work is kind of, I read it more as a train wreck. Some of his Dynamite stuff was kind of fun, although a little like just uninspired, a little kind of like vanilla, but still decent. But I mean, like those two runs specifically, his Daredevil and his Green Arrow are. I think those are benchwork marks, and really represent one of the creative big moments in the early 2000s.
I was not expecting such a detailed answer.
I think about this a lot.
You do. Graham, do you find working within the confines of the traditional 3-panel strip structurally satisfying or claustrophobic?
Claustrophobic.
Very good. Pleased to react to this statement. If everyone in America gave up their guns, we could all link our hands together and sing Kumbaya, heralding a new era of peace and prosperity.
Bullshit.
Pleased to react to this statement. Cloning Ronald Reagan would be the best course of action for the upcoming presidential election.
It would be better than what we got.
I think we may be the only 2 Republican artists on the planet. No? Yes?
There's a few.
No? There's a few?
Oh, yeah.
Are they hiding?
Yeah, they stay under the radar.
Which is more admirable to you and why? Charles Schultz writing and illustrating Peanuts throughout his life, or Bill Watterson walking away from Calvin and Hobbes after 10 years at the top of his game?
Well, I don't think it's a one or the other. It's the personal choices of those cartoonists. Watterson is almost like the diametric opposite of Schultz. Schultz monetized everything with Peanuts, and was wildly successful in everything, and his characters are known throughout the world. I don't think Watterson's characters, as popular as they are known the same way that Peanuts are, because there's just nothing out there unless you count the Calvin pissing on the back of a pickup truck, and that's a bootleg.
Yes.
But it's their own personal preference, and I don't think there's a right and wrong. It's whatever they, whatever they can look in the mirror and have stare back at them.
Do you have a deeper appreciation of the medium after being in it for so many years? I mean, that's discipline right there, is writing the strips.
Yeah, it's a marathon versus a sprint. When you do a comic book, okay, you're doing it every month, but when you get that last page done, you got to clean your desk off, and you get a mental break. Even if you have to start the next issue the next day or on Monday, whatever.
A little soft reset.
Yeah, there's a little reset there. With the comic strip, the storyline runs 6-7 months, so you're never really cleaning off that desk, never going like this and saying, okay. You don't get that. You're just constantly chugging out another mile, and you don't get that kind of. It isn't what it used to be. Hardly anybody's reading the comic strips, which is part of. They make them smaller and smaller, so you can't read them.
And the Phantom was a childhood love of yours.
Oh yeah, I love the Phantom. He's a great character.
Who Batman in part was based on, right?
Well, yeah, he's certainly influenced with the costume, wearing a masked, costume, and he doesn't have superpowers either. The interesting thing for me with the Phantom is that he's like a guy that goes into the family business. He wasn't pushed into it like Batman out of revenge. His planet wasn't blown up and he's not super strong or anything like that. This is what they do. This is what the Walkers do. It happened 400 years ago to the original Walker, and then he made a vow on the skull of his father, never to let piracy, greed, and corruption, and all that kind of stuff. And then he passed that down to the first son, and each kid is raised thinking, well, this is my job. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick ass in the jungle wearing a purple suit.
It's a legacy.
That's right.
I thought about this, too, while I was working on the research. Bane and Paul Dini's Harley Quinn are really the only two new and enduring characters to Batman's Rogues Gallery in the last 25 years. Would you attribute that to hard work, good character development, fan reaction, or all three?
I would add one more thing, luck.
Luck.
Yeah, because every time you create something new, you create it hoping it's going to be the next biggest thing, But you can't do that because nobody knows. If you knew what that was going to be, you would plug in that formula and bam, right out the gate, you'd have another great hit. We knew Bane was going to be popular for the storyline he was being created for, the Nightfall storyline, because it was going to be this big thing and DC was pushing it, and it was something was going to be done to Batman that's never been done before, and that's he's broken,
yes,
basically. So we knew he was going to be popular. What we didn't know was the shelf life of that, how long Bane would be around, and he appeared then in the animated series, and then he appeared in the disastrous Batman and Robin movie.
Yes, and The Batman, the animated series.
Right. And then he got introduced to an entirely new generation through the Arkham Asylum game. And, it just seems like it's been a snowball. He had this peak popularity in the 90s, and then it got a little soft, and then it went like this, and then went right through the roof to this, iconic character that everybody knows.
He keeps coming back around.
Yeah, he's got staying power.
For those who read digitally, The Vengeance of Bane graphic novel was $6.99 on the DC Comics app, probably $12.99 now, but still an excellent read.
Yes, it is. Get to see two of my favorite Batman villains team up, right? Because that's the one with where Bane teams up with Ra's al Ghul.
Mm-hmm. No, that's Bane of the Demon.
Bane of the Demon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, this was the collection. The Vengeance of Bane collection had the Ra's al Ghul team up with Talia.
Right. Yeah, that was.
That's why I'm thinking of it.
yeah. In the paperback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. I don't know if this is too deep a rabbit hole. When you were drawing Nightfall.
Too deep a rabbit hole.
Well.
Let's see what you got.
Bear in mind we have 2 minutes.
Do we? Yeah. Oh, dude.
Go ahead.
Never mind.
Go ahead.
No. Wait. Okay. So the image of Batman's back being broken, you didn't do. It was done by Jim Aparo.
Correct.
Do you wish that you had been able to do that image?
I mean, I wish I would have, but there's no reason for me to do it. That was Jim's. Everybody knew that Jim was going to get that payday. And nobody had any qualms about it. Jim had worked on Brave and Bold all those years before the royalty system kicked in. He was a loyal soldier to DC, just a hell of a nice guy, and he deserved that. And nobody was gonna, squawk about it.
Fair enough. It's such an iconic image.
Yeah.
If you're ever just like, oh damn, I wish I had gotten a chance to do it.
Now, Graham, why do you suppose the industry runs new writers and artists on a treadmill to the point of exhaustion? Do they try and break them, or do they try to strengthen them?
Well, what do you mean? Well, as far as
they'll give
running
them
them
five or six monthly series to work on, or it seems like they work them and just run them like a racehorse almost until they.
Well, I would think that's more what they can handle more than that.
Within their comfort zone?
Well, if they're giving somebody that many titles, then they must think that somebody is going to sell that many titles. Mm-hmm. And that's what it comes down to, is their ability to sell. The fans either liking them or in some cases it's a bit of nepotism, a friend of a friend, you get that good gig because you know Jim Lee or Dan DiDio or Joe Quesada or whatever, whoever it may be.
Right, so there's a little politics there.
There's always politics, yeah.
I would much rather be doing that than hauling mail.
This is not ideal weather for that.
No.
Or shoveling snow, either, with dress shoes. Take it from me, folks. Graham, I wish we had more time. Speaking of money, what would you like to promote? Because we're at Plugola. 2 minutes of as many plugs that my guests and I can fit in with the time we have left.
I got nothing to plug right now.
GrahamNolan.com?